Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. We are continuing our study of the Olivet Discourse. It's been a good, lengthy discussion. We are, believe it or not, drawing down to a close of it. Oh, got something in my eye here. Anyway, sorry about that. But what we are doing here at the very last of our study is connecting a series of dots. We have been focused on Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following for a good long while. And so here again, at the close of our study, we are focusing on connecting some scriptures, some key eschatological passages, and showing that those prophecies, those key eschatological prophecies, which very clearly point to AD 70 as the terminus, those passages, those prophecies, are absolutely directly parallel with Matthew 25, 31 and following. Now, we've already gone over the territory, okay? Not going to go back over that territory again a whole lot. Already gone over the territory that some of the passages mention tenets and elements that are not mentioned in Matthew 25, 31 and following. And Matthew 25, 31 and following mentions things that are not mentioned in these other passages. Again, to argue that therefore that means these are different texts, or to say that they're different times and events, is specious and unwarranted. So, last Wednesday, we connected the dots between, let's go back and recap very, very quickly. We have examined Daniel chapter 12. Daniel chapter 12 foretold the time of the Great Tribulation, which Jesus posited for the first century generation. Matthew chapter 24. We have seen that Daniel chapter 12 foretold the resurrection of the just and the unjust, either to everlasting life or everlasting condemnation. Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. Well, the resurrection of the just and the unjust is John chapter 5, 28 and 29, at the last hour. The last hour of John 6, 39 and 44. We have seen that Daniel chapter 12, verse 3 and 4, predicted the time of the end when the righteous would shine forth in the kingdom. We have seen, we connected the dots between Daniel chapter 12, 3 and 4, when the righteous would shine forth as the stars in the firmament, with Matthew chapter 13, which is a prediction of the time of the harvest at the end of the age, when the righteous would shine forth in the kingdom. Matthew 13, 39 to 43. So once again, we have Daniel foretelling the resurrection at the time of the end, when the righteous would shine forth in the kingdom. We have Matthew 13, the time of the end. By the way, let's not forget that the distinctive Greek word suntelia, kairu, suntelia, the appointed time of the end of Daniel chapter 12, verse 3 and 4, is the end of the age, the suntelia to aeonia, in Matthew 13, 39 and 40, translated as end of the age. These are not ultra common words. It's very clear that Jesus in Matthew 13 is citing, drawing upon Daniel chapter 12. Okay, well, Daniel chapter 12, one angel asks another, when shall these things be? What shall be the end? Greek word in the Septuagint, peros. What shall be the end of these things? And another angel lifted his hand and lifted his right hand and his left to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever and ever, and said, it shall be for a time, times and a half time. That's Daniel chapter 12, verse 6. It is also Revelation chapter 10 and 11. We'll get there in a moment. It shall be for a time, times and a half time. And when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered, all of these things. Folks, what are the antecedent things? All of these things shall be fulfilled. One commentator, Kyle Pope, that I reviewed his book some while back, said, well, it's not all of these things, because the angel asked, what shall be the end of these wonders? So the only thing the angel is asking about is a wonder. Well, the word wonder, okay, to use the hermeneutic, if you're going to argue that Daniel chapter 12, verse 6 and 7 is only talking about wonders, then you got to find out what the wonders were from the previous verses. Okay, great tribulation, resurrection, time of the end, the righteous shining forth. Those are the wonders. If they're not the wonders, is the resurrection not a wonder? Incredible. I mean, after all, in John chapter 5, 28 and 29, do not marvel at this, the resurrection of conversion, to use the terminology. For the hour is coming when in which all that are in the grave shall come forth, shall hear the voice of the Son of Man, and shall come forth. Isn't that a greater wonder? If you're going to talk about wonders, it's just an argumentum ad desperatum to try to say, well, he wasn't talking about all of those things, just the wonders that he had talked about. Well, anyway, so here we have heaven's answer to when the Great Tribulation, the resurrection, the time of the end, the time of the end of the resurrection, and the righteous shining forth at the time when the power of the holy people be completely shattered. That means Matthew 13, connecting our dots, Matthew 13 will be fulfilled when the power of the holy people is completely shattered. Okay? Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following is the gathering of all nations to the judgment. Isn't that the resurrection? It's at the coming of the Lord. So it's the coming of the Lord for the judgment and the rewarding of all men. Well, isn't the resurrection of Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, the time of rewarding? Everlasting life, everlasting condemnation. Of course it is. So last week, we have here's the dots, Daniel 12, Matthew 13, Matthew chapter 25. Folks, they are clearly all discussing the same time and the same event. But remember, Daniel chapter 12 is about the time when the power of the holy people be completely shattered. So last week, we then came to Revelation chapter 10 and chapter 11. In Revelation chapter 10, 6 and 7, we are told that in the sounding of the seventh trumpet, the mystery of God foretold by the prophets would be fulfilled. Well, what is the mystery of God, ladies and gentlemen? Well, it was foretold by the prophets. So whatever the mystery of God was, foretold by the prophets, it would be fulfilled in the time of the sounding the seventh trumpet. Well, guess what? Revelation chapter 11 says that at the sounding of the seventh trumpet, God took his great power and begun to reign. We talked about the significance of that term last week. Go back and look at last Wednesday's video. Very important. Okay. God took his power and and began to reign. Okay? Number 2, the time of the dead, that they should be judged, arrived. Wait a minute. Sounding of the 7th trumpet, the time of the dead that they should be judged. But wait a minute. Time of the dead, or the time of the sounding of the 7th trumpet, is when the mystery of God would be fulfilled. The mystery of God foretold by the prophets would be fulfilled. That means the resurrection, the time of the dead that they should be judged, would be fulfilled at the sounding of the 7th trumpet. That means the resurrection, the time of the dead that they should be judged, was part of the mystery of God foretold by the prophets. Now, keep in mind, in my review of Steve Gregg's book, Why Not Full Preterism, I took note of the fact that a few years ago, boy, it's been almost 10 years, I had a formal public debate with Steve Gregg. In that debate, he denied that the Old Testament foretold the resurrection. Amazing. However, in this book, and we will continue our discussion of this book on Friday, okay? In this book, Steve backtracks and says, well, yes, the Old Testament did, after all, predict the resurrection. That's what you call a debate conversion. That brings my friend Steve Gregg closer to the truth that the Old Testament foretold the resurrection. That is abundantly clear right here, Revelation 10 and 11. In the sounding of the 7th trumpet, the mystery of God foretold by the prophets would be fulfilled. Revelation 11, at the sounding of the 7th trumpet, the resurrection, the resurrection, part of the mystery of the 7th trumpet, would be fulfilled. The mystery foretold by the prophets. That's the Old Testament prophets. Now, Revelation chapter 11. The mystery of God foretold by the prophets involves the time of the dead that they should be judged. Okay? But remember, Revelation 10, 6, and 7 is a direct echo, a direct allusion to Daniel chapter 12, verse 6 and 7. Daniel chapter 12, one angel asked another, when shall these things be? When shall these wonders be? What shall be the end of these wonders? And the other angel lifts his hands to heaven and swears by him who lives forever and forever. Okay? Folks, most commentators who correlate Old Testament and New, G.K. Beale does in his massive tome, correlating the New Testament's use of the Old Testament, says, the angel in Revelation chapter 10 is clearly drawing, that's not a quote, by the way, but the angel is clearly drawing on Daniel chapter 12. Okay, we ought to be able to figure this out very easily, right? Daniel chapter 12, resurrection, end of the age, rewarding. Resurrection, judgment of the dead, rewarding at the time of the end, at the appointed time of the end. Once again, Kairu, the appointed time of the soon to live, the consummation. Well, folks, isn't the resurrection the time of the eschatological consummation? Of course it is. So once again, Daniel chapter 12, resurrection, time at the appointed time of the end, the resurrection, and the judgment, and the rewarding. Revelation chapter 10 and 11, sounding of the seventh trumpet, to fulfill Daniel, the prophet, who foretold the time of the resurrection, the time of the judgment, the time of the rewarding. But we're not done. I'm out of time, but we're not done. By the way, what did I do with that? Okay. I thought I had it on my desk. So anyway, do not forget, ladies and gentlemen, here we are coming down to the end of July 2023. I have a brand new book just introduced, about 6 weeks or so ago, entitled, These Are the Days in Which All Things That Are Written Must Be Fulfilled. The regular price of the book is $18.95 plus $4.95 shipping. For the rest of July 2023, U.S. orders only, total delivered price, that includes the shipping, $16.95. Go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com. There's a beautiful banner right up at the very top. Just click on the banner and order the book. Believe you me, ladies and gentlemen, what you will see, and we will examine this as we proceed, you will see that all things really were fulfilled in AD 70. I'll see you on the flip side.